Well, welcome to today's podcast, which is a filmed podcast, which is different than usual. And it's quite nice to be here with Michael Moore, who is an independent Scientologist and is very big in the independent field. He runs a website and a network called the Association of Professional Independent Scientologists. It's great to have you here, Michael. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Great to be here, Andy.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, can you explain what APIS is?
Association of Professional Independent Scientologists. It's a group I started up probably around about 10, 12 years ago. Still going strong. And basically the idea is that we retain and keep the original philosophy and technology that L. Ron Hubbard produced, which is known as Scientology. The reason I started it is because the church does not practice Scientology anymore, and is Scientology in name only, not in practice. They have changed or altered it, and I felt that we still need to retain the original, or someone does. And so we have a number of auditors, we have a number of a few groups here and there, and a lot of members who all support the concept and the idea that we should still have the original technology and the original philosophy. It's possible, as in a lot of technologies in the past, after a time they get diluted, they get added to, they get changed. People say, oh, well, you should do this, or you should do that. In Portugal, the apprenticeship for wine making is a classic case example, because that used to be, they used to train people in how to make the ports and the wines, and there's no apprenticeship anymore, and so the technology is slowly disappearing. And we don't want that to happen to the original technology of Scientology.
And you think in the church that's kind of what's happened to the church? It's changed from what it originally was?
It has. It's been documented that there are changes in how it's delivered, in the changes in what is delivered, in terms of when you go there to do some study or to have some auditing. The way it's done is different to how Ron Hubbard originally developed it.
Well, church members will admit that there recently, in the past 10 years, have been changes made, but they claim that there have been changes made to as per L. Ron Hubbard's specifications. What would you say to that?
Basically, if they can show me a policy letter by Ron Hubbard that specifically states the change, then that would be acceptable because it would be issued by Ron. If it's not issued by Ron, then it's not LOH technology. He might have taken something that someone else has done, possibly, like David Mayo assisted him with a lot of the technology. Now, with some of the stuff that they did together, or David Mayo did, or even one or two others, Ron took a lot of stuff on board, and if it was checked if it worked and it fitted in with the technology and it fitted in with the basic axioms and the basic principles, then it would be used. And if basically that other prime thing is, does it work?
Yeah.
Then it would be accepted, and he would then issue it, because if he issued it, then it could be said to be Scientology. If someone else issues it, then it's not. It's something else.
Yeah.
It might look like Scientology. It might sound like it. There are groups in Europe, for example, that offer a technology which is not Ron Hubbard's technology, but someone else's.
Yeah.
And call it Scientology.
Yeah.
But it's not.
And APIS is Scientology, and it's
purely that, simply, nothing else. No additives, no alterations, no
special editing,
special editing, or not special editing,
changing apostrophes.
Even down to that point, because changing an apostrophe or a comma can make a big difference in a sentence.
Yeah,
tremendous difference.
Yeah,
as to the meaning, and understanding the meaning and duplicating it exactly as Ron Hubbard gave it is crucial to understanding Scientology and being able to apply it correctly.
Yeah. And with some of these changes that David Miscavige has made when he releases them, he seems to say that he's got like his own private comm line to L. Ron Hubbard. Like he'll say something like, "Oh, we changed this History of Man book to be as per what L. Ron Hubbard said," but he doesn't show any evidence of where L. Ron Hubbard said it should be that. But you get the idea when you watch his events of the release of the basics and other things, that there's L. Ron Hubbard wrote all these personal notes that he has and only him seems to know, and he just mentions them, but you never get to see any evidence that L. Ron Hubbard said these changes should be made.
That's what you call a hidden data line.
Yeah.
That's what we call that, a hidden data line. It's where someone professes to know something that an originator has produced, but not issued.
And so then he makes changes to the books and this other book and this other book and this other and this auditing and blah blah blah, and the church members just go, "Oh, he's doing what L. Ron Hubbard said."
Well, changes to the books are not exactly that for that reason. The changes to the books are to do with copyright. Although the original books have probably not fallen out of copyright, I think partially the reason, what you say, Andy, is true, but part of the reason also is the fact that they wanted to reissue the books to make money. And what they've done, instead of is saying, for example, the original thesis, which was a book that Ron Hubbard wrote, instead of saying the original thesis by L. Ron Hubbard, which is what you would expect, the title actually is the original thesis by L. Ron Hubbard. That's the title. In most books, that's not the title. The title is the title of the book, and after the title comes a statement that tells you who it's by.
Yeah.
But in the new books, that doesn't happen. Who it's by is incorporated within the title itself.
So they changed the title of the
books. They've changed the title of the books.
Yeah.
They've changed the content of the books, and there's plenty of references and examples on the internet which anyone can find.
Yeah.
Omitting information, changing information, even basic information such as the dynamics.
Yeah.
For example, you've got the 8 dynamics. One of the basic principles that Ron Hubbard, or the basic principle that he came up with, was that everything is trying to survive. And it's a principle that anyone can go out and see for themselves. You can see how much animals and plants and people strive their utmost to survive, both as themselves and also as a family unit and also as a species. Plants are good at this. They produce a phenomenal amount of seeds in order to ensure or guarantee the survival of that species. And there's other sort of examples. For example, you see a piece of concrete, and through the concrete you will see a plant pushing its way through. A plant is a soft, pliable thing. Concrete is very hard, but that doesn't stop that plant. Its determination to survive is so strong, it will crack that concrete. So survival is a prime principle upon which Scientology is based. Now, one can survive as oneself, as an individual, through the second dynamic, which is the sex act and the procreation of children. And the third is as a group of people. So you have a society or a group or women's society or a golf club or anything like that is a group. Then you've got survival of mankind, which is the fourth dynamic. And then there are others after that. For example, the second dynamic has been changed, not to be the sex act and the procreation of children, but the ability to be creative. That was not the original definition that Ron Hubbard gave to that dynamic, but it's now been changed to that.
Yeah.
That's just one example. There's other examples.
So there's a lot, isn't there? Yeah, and when it comes to the basic things, I mean, they're so obvious and they're so out in the open. But there's a lot of things like maybe the OT levels and more things that are specific that only auditors would really know about that have probably been changed as well.
There's changed. Yes, there were originally OT levels, which basically is really just exercises for a being. Once they've gone past the point of clear, it's like a newborn child. They have to learn to walk and they have to learn to crawl and all this business. So a clear then has to learn how to be an OT.
A spiritual being.
Spiritual being.
Yeah.
Again, because it's something that's probably lost. A lot of people don't think they are spiritual beings. They think they're physical. So they get a big surprise when the body dies. But it's better to have the understanding and realization prior to that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the benefits that one gets in Scientology. But a lot of religions have that understanding that man is not a body but a spiritual being.
Yeah.
So getting back to that point, the best way of putting it, you've got a lot of basics in Scientology. For example, you've got axioms that describe that a person is a spiritual being with a mind and a body. And the mind is one of the things which has sort of gone awry, if you like, and caused man to become aberrated. So he's lost his understanding that he's a spiritual being. He thinks he's a piece of meat. So because of that, he's degenerated or gone down what we call a downward spiral. So instead of becoming more aware, he's become less and less and less aware.
Yeah.
And the environment in which he's in supports that.
Encourages drugs and all those other things.
Encourages media, all these various things. They all encourage that downward spiral.
Yeah, and like even when it comes to like to get healthy, they recommend going to the gym and pumping weights and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, yeah, that does have a bit of a health benefit.
It's nice for the body.
Yeah,
but it's like just the body. It's not the being. It doesn't rehabilitate the being.
And also they sometimes push it pretty hard, and it ends up wearing people's bodies out. Even
So yeah, okay. So the thing is to retain this technology, and the church is on this downward spiral.
Has joined in.
It's gone into agreement with that.
Yeah.
It's joined in. It has a leader, you mentioned David Miscavige, who is assigned himself the post of chairman of the board. There's no actual board.
Yeah.
So he's a chairman of a board that doesn't exist.
It is. And it's one of the things that's funny when you're involved with the church, because you might be studying some of the admin tech or the staff statuses or something, and you look at things like, the org boards and you look at things like chairman of the board, and you ask questions like, what's the board, who's on the board, and no one knows. You know what I mean?
Well,
the church members don't know.
That's because there isn't one.
Yeah.
There's only one person, which is like a dictator.
Yeah.
Operating in the post of a dictator, but calling himself a chairman.
And apparently he's got a hidden dated line to L. Ron Hubbard. It's like he's making himself out to be Source when he might not be Source at all.
Well, he isn't Source.
Yeah.
L. Ron Hubbard is Source.
Yeah.
Firstly. And secondly, no, he doesn't have a hidden data line.
Yeah.
Any more than anyone else does.
Yeah.
No one does. I mean, there are people that said, I have a hidden data line to Ron, and this is what he has said. I command that thou do so and so. No. Yeah. It's not like that at all.
And so talking about that means that what you doing with APIS, your association, obviously you'd be using materials that were issued by L. Ron Hubbard.
Only.
Yeah.
But getting back to your question, it's difficult to say regarding the people in the church what they think. Some of them realise they probably get a whole range of people. Some who implicitly believe whatever they're told.
Yeah.
Some have some doubts but keep it to themselves.
Yeah. A lot of people will be in that category, I think.
Probably a majority may be in that category.
Yeah.
Some will have some doubts and voice them. and get
and go to
trod
ethics.
down. Go to ethics. Yeah.
Do lots of sec checks.
And some think, forget this, that's it, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they leave.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that have left the church is quite phenomenal. But the amount of people that have been kicked out is also phenomenal. There's been around about 2,000 people that Miscavige has kicked out.
Yeah, and I heard something like heaps of the old Saint Hill people.
Most of those,
declared.
90% of them, would be people that worked with LOH at St Hill and during the development days and attended his lectures and so forth. All of those people who practiced the technology as he issued it have all been booted out.
Yeah. I heard something like 90% of the staff at Old St Hill were declared.
Yeah.
And since then, obviously, the stats just go down, and everyone knows, what percentage of the population are SPs, and it's not 90% at all.
2.5%.
Yeah, it's probably the 2.5% that we're doing the declaring, getting out the good majority. Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that although all of that is happening, and you get stuff like with the O2 levels, which we were talking about before, altering that. The original O2 levels that were issued, the exercises that I mentioned, up to after OT3, they are not now delivered by the church, but the new aerodynamics or knots is delivered by the church instead. But even that is not delivered the way it's supposed to be, because they include within that other actions. Now, when you're doing an action on the bridge, a lot of people that watch this will know this, but there are a lot of people that don't. When you're doing what they call a major action, which is like one of the levels, or you're doing knots, or you're doing the clearing course or whatever, it's called a major action. And one thing you don't do when you're in the middle of a major action is suddenly introduce something else. For example, when you're building a bridge, you don't suddenly decide to build a tunnel underneath it. So in the knots, the church has introduced this other auditing called sec checking, which is security checking, which has nothing to do with knots. Knots is a major action. The person should be focused totally on completing that action, not on being dispersed into doing other actions.
Yeah.
So that's an alter-is of the technology.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things the church is doing.
Yeah.
So it's very important because it's so easy. It's so easy to alter-is and change and introduce, let's have this in, or let's cut this short. For example, on the grades, as you know very well, the grades are not being fully delivered. They're only partially being delivered.
Yeah.
For each grade on the grade chart, of which there are 5, there should be at least 25 hours on each grade, minimum.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of work that can be done on each grade.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to get people through as fast as possible.
Yeah.
This was being done in the late 60s, early 70s, when one was when one was in control, and then he discovered that and he hit the roof, and he issued lots of policies, letters like keeping Scientology working, callatives and safeguarding technology, all those sort of policy letters he issued, primarily to stop that from happening. Now, of course, he's not there, and the church is more interested in making money than in delivering a service. So there's a whole lot of facets to this. Because of that, they are losing their reputation, because if you don't deliver what you promise, you end up in the shit.
Yeah.
To be blunt, it applies in any business, and you can see that in a lot of businesses. If you don't deliver what you promise, then your popularity goes down, your altitude goes down, people go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Scientology. If you're saying we will give you this ability, and they don't, that's not delivering what is promised. That's a betrayal after trust.
Yeah. And they're paying thousands of dollars.
And they're paying a lot of money for it, and it's extremely hard to get it back. So there's that sort of thing. So it's very important and vital that the technology somewhere, somehow, is preserved and kept free from any outside influence of any sort. And APIS is not the only one doing this. There are other groups and other people doing it. It's very difficult for individuals to do because they're subject to all the traumas and the trails of the outside world, and they don't have much in the way of support. But they should be commended for the fact that they're doing it. They're doing something, and I admire them for that. It's very difficult, but you do need we do need these groups to hold the line, if you like.
Keep the tech pure.
Keep it pure.
And I think it's the church members. They just basically have been tricked and sort of conned because they believe that Dave Miscavige and RTC are fixing the tech and correcting it, but they're just getting conned because it's just they're just changing the tech. They're not fixing it up.
There was nothing to fix.
Yeah.
LOH did not produce a tech that needed fixing.
Yeah, exactly. And if he issued a policy with a problem in it or something, he would have reissued it, wouldn't he? And when he was alive, did he reissued things, didn't he?
The evolution of the tech can be found in the St. Hill Special Briefing course. That's where you see the evolution, where he was working, and every time he came up with a new discovery or a new development, that was when he would tell those at the lectures straight away, and recorded that, so anyone can now listen to those tapes.
And think of it from let's say you ran a church, right, and you wrote a book and you released it, and there was a bunch of editing mistakes because the changes that have been made in the books, there's heaps of changes that have been made. So you release the book, there's all these mistakes in it, and you're in charge of the church. You obviously go and reissue the book again while you're there to correct it, right?
You can issue erratas.
Yeah, well, you would fix it up basically. But L. Ron Hubbard, for example, let's say, let's just use History of Man for example. What it was released around 1955 or something like that. So he was alive and involved with the church for 30-something years, right? If that book was full of mistakes, he would have corrected it while he was around. You know what I mean?
It's the new book, since you picked that one, contains some of the original book, but also a lot of other stuff as well. That wasn't the original book. Now, when he's alive, he might have, at some point, might have decided to reissue it and change it, but he didn't.
Yeah, because it didn't need to get changed.
It was not the purpose of it. I don't think that was the purpose of it. The purpose of it was just to outline and show people that there are past lives, and anyone can discover them.
Yeah,
and that's true. And as soon as you go in for having any dianetic auditing, then a person can find that out quite quickly.
It's really funny because when I was involved with the church, because I hadn't been around for really, really long, I'd come along after the new books had been released and all these changes had been made, and so you get a hold of these materials and you think, oh, it's fantastic, it's been corrected as per what L. Ron Hubbard wanted, and you just end up believing it all and buying the sales pitch and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so your Association of Professional Independent Scientologists is a network, a group to keep standard tech running, and is it kind of like a almost like a yellow pages that you go to find an auditor for yourself?
A little bit more than that, I'd say. First of all, it has it has a few purposes, but three main ones. Preserving the exact technology, exactly as LOH issued it. Protecting it, making sure it's not lost, suppressed, anything like that. And the third one is promoting it, getting it out as far out as people as possible. The The association is literally that, an association. And itself, it does not deliver auditing or training, but we have as members those that do.
Yeah.
And we have a list of those on the website, and they have been certified as delivering the exact technology as LRH issued it. So what we do then is list them on the website, and anyone can go to any of those and know they can get standard technology. Some people might say, who are we to issue the certification? The answer to that question is, well, okay, who else is going to do it? Certainly not the church.
Yeah.
And it's not something that's new. LRH issued certifications.
Yeah.
In the qualification division under certain awards. That's where he issued the certifications.
Yeah.
So we're continuing that work that he did in that sense.
There's so many questions I can ask you. I mean, there's heaps. That just like, I mean, you know how Scientology is such a big topic. But I don't know if you're willing to say, but how many members does APIS have? There are 2 or 3 different types of members, but it boils down to 2 types: those that are willing to be exposed or shown on the website, and those that are not. Those exposed on the website basically are auditors or trainers, and they put their names up there, and they're the people that we would send queries to, auditor, pre-clears and students. And I get probably a few of those every week. So I'm continually dispersing, this guy's closest to you, see this guy's closest to you, see this guy. Yeah.
We have a lot of members which are what they call under the radar, which is to say they don't want their name bandied around. They still have some fear of the church because it does practice retribution on occasions, and it feels like it. But as part of the privacy laws, we don't disclose any information about them at all. In fact, the names are not even kept on the server where the website is. So there'd be no point hacking it to find out.
Okay. Yeah.
If you don't want any information given out, don't put it on a server. It's very simple.
Yeah. And so, how has with yourself and with the auditors that are part of the APIS, how is it going with the like attacks from the church and OSA and stuff? Is it still occurring, or have things died down? Because things seem to be a bit quiet these days.
There's a few different things happening here. When we first started, we used to get a lot of attacks.
How long ago was that?
That was 12 years ago, maybe. A lot of overt attacks, people turning up at the door, solicitors' letters from high-powered solicitors saying you better close your website down, and we demand to have the domain name, this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And even
hold on, how can they demand to have the domain name when, if there's an internet domain name, anyone can buy a domain name, then they're allowed to buy
it had the word Scientology in it, so they said that was infringing trademark.
So they're trying to own that word Scientology. Do they actually own the word Scientology?
It's generic nowadays. It's generic. You cannot produce a case legally to say that they own the word. It's now generic.
Because it's a religion. I mean, how can you own
It's a religion.
Own the word Catholic or Christian? Or
there's a website called the-scientologist.com, and on there are hundreds of articles on Scientology. One of which talks about this and the fact that now the word Catholicism, Islam, Baha'i faith, Judaism are not trademarked. And neither can Scientology be trademarked by the same token.
Yeah.
And it's used by so many people, it's in so many books, movies, journalists, millions of websites. So, I mean, they've got no chance.
Yeah.
But yes, in the early days we did get a lot of attacks. Even when I was working in for a telecommunications company, and they used to ring up the company and try and put me in it by saying I was doing, while I was on the job, I was doing other work, other jobs, other not to do with telecommunications company, running my own business, for example, which I wasn't. But there's a lot of third partying and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
None of which resulted in anything.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of a bloody nuisance at the time. I even had those two. They use private detectives because then they're sort of divorced at arm's length from what's being done. You see. And one day I received a phone call from a private detective wanted to talk to my son. So I thought he was one of his friends. I said, "Hey, one of your friends?" "Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Piss off." And that's not quite what he said. He said something worse than that. But anyway, I said, "So who is that?" He said, "It's some private detective trying to get information about you." So that was fascinating. I thought that was quite fascinating that they would ring me to talk to my son to get information about me, which was. But anyway, that's just one of the things. There's quite a few things. But those were all overt sort of attacks.
Yeah.
And when you know the town scale, you know that there's overt is at one particular point on the town scale, and just below that you have covert.
Yeah.
So then from overt, we then had covert attacks. So they're obviously going down the scale, down the town scale, because one of the things I did every time that we received an attack, I simply opened a new website. So we eventually ended up with about 8 or 9 websites. So I think they got the picture that
it wasn't working.
Wasn't working. In fact, I was quite prepared to open another 100.
Yeah.
And I had the facilities and the means to do so.
So it has started to quiet down a bit with it.
I don't get attacked. Sometimes the people on the auditors listed might get attacked. So I sort of help them out a bit with what to say, and we make changes to the website so that to try and sort of cut out the reasons for any possible attack. But even that's sort of stopped now.
Yeah.
I think the church is more concerned with 2 things. One, trying to regain their position, which is almost untenable in the world.
Do you mean reputation?
Reputation, altitude, all of this. And the other thing is to make money, because they're not making money by selling services.
Yeah.
So they try and make money by donations instead.
Yeah.
So that's what their focus is on.
Yeah. Yeah, like they could. It seems like they could fund the because they had, they've always had a lot of lawsuits going on, but there was a lot of action going on in the 80s, so they could sort of fund those sort of things by selling services. But nowadays, the amount of services have died off so much; it's so quiet that they have to really rely on donations.
Because they're not delivering. If they were delivering, then I mean, when I was there, that you'd have 10, 20 people in the course room. My understanding now is there's about 1 or 2.
Yeah.
In any course rooms, and some of them not even any.
Yeah.
So they're not delivering the service. It's not that they're trying to find money because they're not delivering the service. They're not making money because they're not delivering the service. So they're trying, instead of delivering the service, they're trying unusual solutions.
Yeah.
An unusual solution is doing something different. It's like in a restaurant. If you produce crap food, people don't come back. So then you do something else in the restaurant.
You put like a pretty picture up.
Or you try and sell second-hand clothes in the shop, in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Or buy second-hand clothes to get money in. But what they should be doing is improving the quality of the food and selling good food. Then people would come back.
Exactly.
So it's the same principle.
I can't remember if you answered this, but did you say how many members there were in the APIS?
No, I didn't.
Is that for a reason, or?
Several hundred is about the most I would prepared to say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's it seems like, yeah. So it's like a safe for anyone who's who wants to try Scientology. It's like a bit of a safe haven they can go to where they can get standard tech. And there's other people doing Scientology. Do you think that there's almost as many people doing Scientology outside of the church as in the church?
I don't know any facts or figures, but my understanding, and I hope this would be the case, that there will be more.
Yeah.
There's certainly a lot in Europe.
Yeah.
And in the States.
Yeah.
The trouble is, a lot of people don't make it publicly known. There are even groups out there that are flourishing quite well that are not publicly known.
Yeah.
I know one or two at least.
Yeah.
And they're busy auditing and training people. So it is being done, but it's not.
It's not public.
It's not public, and it's very difficult to be able to say.
Yeah.
I don't know how many there are in the church either.
Yeah.
Not as many as there used to be, I'd say.
Do you think some people in the independent field, because Scientology has such a bad reputation because of what the church has done, do some independent auditors actually don't even mention that they're doing Scientology? Do they just practice it?
I've no idea.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
You'd have to know them to know that.
Yeah, I've heard some wise people who are doing wise consulting using LRH tech. I've heard some of them don't even mention it's LRH or Scientology or anything, but they just deliver the admin tech.
Well, it's possible, and I don't doubt that there might be some that do that. But I don't know personally of any.
Yeah. All right, I've got a controversial question here. Okay, so...
At last.
Huh?
At last.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, I guess everything's controversial. In the church, right, there seems to be people who are getting unwell, like cancer and that sort of stuff. And I'm wondering, in the independent field where people are actually practicing standard tech, are people getting cancer on the OT levels and passing away at the rate that they are in the church?
I've not heard of any, but what I will say is that there never used to be, when standard tech was practiced in the church, there were no cases of cancer, except for one that I knew.
Yeah.
And she had cancer before she went into the church.
Yeah.
And she eventually died.
Yeah.
But that was the only case that I know of. No one else I heard or knew of who went through standard tech got cancer. Now, I can fully understand if the technology is altered.
Yeah.
For example, if you build a road across a bridge, and then you build the road so that it veers off the bridge and then stops so that people will drop into the water.
Yeah.
Well, you can expect people to go off and drop into the water.
Yeah.
So you've got to keep going across the bridge exactly. None of this deviation crap. And I would say that if there are people, and there have been people that I believe have got sick and ill because they're not receiving standard technology. They're receiving something else.
So Scientology tech, you're saying Scientology tech is so powerful that done wrongly, it can lead to illnesses.
It's not so much that it's powerful. It's not within itself. All it does is it points the person's attention in the direction of that which they need to see. And it's up to the individual to see that. Now, the standard technology does this in a way that's been developed so that they can pretty easily go down that path to see that and to discover something about themselves and to have a realization about themselves. If you direct someone to do something different to that, because for some unknown reason, then you're not doing that, you're doing something else. And obviously the results then cannot be guaranteed. If you're doing something else, you'll get a different result.
Yeah, well, when I was involved with the church, I didn't do any of the higher level, so-called more powerful sort of stuff. But I did do a sec check, right? And at the end of it, it was like I'd spent a lot of money. I thought it was silly, and it really pissed me off. Actually, like it really pissed me off. The fact that I felt depressed after it, right? So if you I think you were talking earlier about the church ordering a lot of these sec checks and stuff. My understanding that is, if you got someone who's low tone, they're more likely to get illnesses and that sort of stuff. So it could be that the way that they're doing things and ordering lots of sec checks and that sort of stuff is just putting people lower toned and wasting their money and pissing them off, and then they get things like illnesses and all that sort of stuff.
There's one thing in that called bypass charge. Now, bypass charge is when most people have something that could be a past trauma or something that could be re-stimulated. And bypass charge is when that gets sort of touched and it causes them to get upset. But it's been touched but not handled. If it was fully handled, then the reason for the upset would dissipate, it would vanish. But it's like that you're not actually doing that, but just touching something. It's like touching a sore tooth without pulling it out.
Yeah.
Just
flares it up and the blood comes out.
Prodding it, ouch, ouch, ouch.
Yeah.
Where it should be removed, because it's maybe a decayed tooth. It's the same sort of a principle, really. So then you get bypass charge. Then if a person has auditing which is not correctly done, the auditor does not do it correctly, or it's the wrong auditing for that individual at that time, then it creates bypass charge, and that upsets the person. They get pissed off, they get angry, they might get very emotional, and that's basically what happens. So what you need to do is then go in and find out what the bypass charge is, or at least indicate it, and say, hey, just to indicate you had some bypass charge there. Oh, okay, right, fine, thanks. Yeah, I did, you're right, bang, boom.
So it seems like there's a lot of people running around the church with bypass charge and stuff.
Oh, more than you can throw a brick at.
Yeah, exactly. With your network and APIs, how do you maintain the quality of standard? Yes. How do you know your auditors aren't screwing?
Well, you do get pre-clears that will come to you and say, hey, I don't like this auditing I had, blah, 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 blah. So then you investigate and you find out, and you maybe get some examples of those sessions, and it will go to the tech department and they would check the quality of the sessions, the auditing, to make sure it's standard. So we've got those sort of facilities there.
Yeah.
If a person wants to be certified, we do need to know that they are truly certified in terms of the quality of the service that they deliver. So that means that might also mean seeing some videos of their auditing, seeing examples of their sessions of their auditing, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then from that we can say, well, that person is standard, they do everything perfectly, blah, blah, blah.
Well, let's take carpentry, for example, someone who builds decks. It could be a really similar situation in that if this person's having lots of complaints from customers that their decks are shit, then you're going to start questioning that they might be squirreling on how to do it properly. So that's kind of what you do to sort of lean towards.
Well, we've had one or two people that have we found swiveled, and they just get removed because it's fully contained within the constitution of the association, and when a person signs up, they have to agree to certain basic things, such as they follow keeping Scientology working, they adhere strictly to LOH, materials only, and a few other things like that. So they have to agree to that, and if they agree to that and then don't do it, then of course they violated the terms, so they get booted out.
This is a technical thing, but I don't know too much about this, but there's things that were apparently issued that were called board tech bulletins that were sort of not issued by LRH. So would you accept those policy letters and that sort of stuff?
They're not issued by LRH, so no.
Oh,
it's very simple. If LRH wrote it, we'll accept it. If he didn't, we don't.
Yeah.
That includes if it's accepted under his name. For example, some of the Division 6 policy letters were written by Diana Hubbard, his daughter, for him.
Yeah.
And he would have checked it over, make sure it's fine, and he would have given his approval. So then it would become a policy letter. Mary Sue Hubbard issued, I think, 1 or 2 policy letters that way.
And so did it say by Mary Sue Hubbard, authorised by L. Ron Hay?
Yeah, it has the full authority listed on it so you can see.
And what about the board tech bulletins? Do they have that, or do they just...
No.
They don't
No,
say...
they're issued by some nebulous other character or person. Or
When did they start coming about?
Some of those were issued while LRH was on deck. Sort of fairly innocuous, mostly administrative.
Did it have L. Ron Hubbard's name on it? No. So it just said by board tech bulletin or something like that? So there's none that say by board tech bulletin approved by LRH? There's none that say that?
If there's any doubt, basically, if there's any doubt whether an issue should be acceptable or not, the basic criteria is it by Ron Hubbard? If not, then the answer is no.
All right, now I want to do a bit of time travelling here. I want to find out how you got into Scientology. It was back in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yes, 69.
And how'd you get into it?
I lived in Brighton in England. And I met through some friends, met this chap called Dana Pabona, French name, but he wasn't French. And he basically gave me a book to read, which was Fundamentals of Thought. And he says, read this. Okay, so I read the book. I thought it was quite good. It was very, very clear, very easy to understand. And it came up with some basic principles that explained a lot of things that I had questions for. So then after I read the book, he says, what did you think? I said, well, it was very good. He says, okay, well, we'll do an exercise then. I said, okay, fine. So he sat down in front of me, face on, like we are, but more sort of face on, and said, okay, we'll do a drill. And he gave me this bulletin to read, which was called TR's Modernised. So a lot of people know what that is. And these are, and he's then, okay, now, read that? Yes, I read that. So he said, okay, start. And he looked at me for about an hour, and I looked at him and nothing happened. I thought, this is weird, strange. And a lot of sort of manifestations occurring. And at the end of the hour, he says, oh, that's it. Oh, was it? Huh, very good, okay. Don't know what that was, but okay. And I didn't understand the bulletin because he didn't clear any words or anything. So a lot of words I didn't understand. But very basically what it was one of the basic drills in Scientology where you learn to be able to confront another individual without flinching and without having to, as you see on interviews on TV, sometimes they're, and this and all this all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary to do that. You can just simply be there and face the individual. And the purpose of this is to be able to audit someone.
Yeah.
Because if you're not there, then it's difficult to audit someone. You actually have to be there to do that. Which is one of the reasons why Skype does not really produce excellent results, because of course you're not there.
Yeah.
But apart from that, after that I went to St Hill, had a look around. That was nice. I had some auditing, and that was what they call quickie auditing, which was the auditing that Ron hit the roof over, because it was like
early 70s was this?
69, 70.
This is after you released sort of the quickie.
Well, he must have been, because that's what I had when I went to St Hill. I said, right, I'll give you the grades. Okay, suits me. Sat down. 2 hours later, right, your grades are finished.
All of them or one of them?
All of them.
In
all
2
5
hours?
In 2 hours. That's what you
that
call
is
quickie grades.
Classic quickie.
Yeah, that is classic, literally.
Absolutely. That's exactly what the policy talks about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why one hit the roof, because, I mean, there's absolutely nothing delivered at all.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, apart from that, I then went to London and went to the London org there, the church there, and did the Dianetics course and had Dianetic auditing, about 25, 30 hours of that.
Yeah.
And then I sort of started to wake up to who I really was, and got rid of a lot of aches and pains that I had, and yeah, it was fantastic. And then it sort of went from there.
Yeah.
Ended up on staff, ran the Brighton church. They decided to set up a church in Brighton, which was 50 miles away from St Hill.
Yeah.
So I and another guy, John Whipp, and another guy, I can't remember his name now, we set up there, and we didn't have any auditors. We couldn't audit. We had no academy, but we used to sign people up for auditing and training and this sort of stuff. And when we got a PC, we'd ring up St Hill and say, hey, we got a PC, can you send an auditor down?
Yeah.
So I sent an auditor down to audit him.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we were getting all these people in and giving them tests, the OCA tests, personality tests, they call it here. Yeah. And they just disappear. I don't know what happens to them, but anyway, they've had the test. We later discovered that what happens to all these people that we got in, and we educated, sold a book to, maybe did a test, they all ended up at St Hill on services.
Yeah.
So we were doing something right, obviously. But then we had an evaluation done on the Brighton org, and it was discovered that it really should not be an org, it should be a city office, which is basically what we were doing. We were doing city office stuff. Yeah. So we did that for a while, and then they pulled me to St Hill, and then I worked training in the academy, training people, and doing various other things and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sort of went from there, basically.
So what year did you join the Sea Org?
Good question. Yeah, when I was at St Hill, I joined there. Billionaire contract. Didn't seem like a long time to me then.
Yeah, yeah. And you joined because you like Scientology, yeah?
I believed in what was being done.
That's why you left the church?
No, I left the church then, at that time. After that, I left the church and came to Australia.
Yeah.
That was basically my own fault.
Yeah, yeah.
I was responsible for that. I left probably when I should not have left.
Yeah.
Should have got myself handled instead, but no, I didn't. I just decided to leave, so I left. And after a while, I came here.
Yeah.
Partially to see my parents, because they had left England 10 years before. See, I didn't leave home, they did.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll go and see them. So I came to this country, saw them, potted around a bit, and then joined the church again here in Melbourne.
The Sea Org again, or just?
Well, of course, one never leaves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the ex-Sea Org members aren't allowed to join a local church.
Well, they took me on. They says, oh, we need a flag rep. You can be the flag rep. Okay. So I was a flag rep in Melbourne, and then Sydney, and back to Melbourne, and Sydney again. And then at one point there was we were talking about issues before, and there's policy letters and bulletins, and there's also an issue called an LOHED, which is blueprint. LOHED is issued by One Hubbard only, specifically for staff and public that use that are on services.
Yeah.
And any LOHED was only issued by him, no one else. There's another thing called Standing Order Number 1. Now, you'll find out why I explain this in a minute. Standing order number 1 was where you could write to Ron and he would respond to your letter. Anyone could write to Ron, and you were encouraged to do so. And I wrote to Ron a lot. I got some original letters back from him in the early days. And then one day, while I was on mission in New Zealand, this LOHED came out, which was not by Ron.
Yeah.
It was by WDC, which was apparently something called the Watchdog Committee.
Yeah.
Never heard of him.
Yeah.
But it wasn't by him. And it said that he would no longer be answering letters on the SO1 line.
Yeah.
So here we have what I call a massive outpoint.
Yeah.
Which is the fact that an issue that only he's supposed to issue was issued by someone else, explaining that he would not be doing what he said he would be doing. So that, to me, was a red flag, if you like.
Yeah.
And from that moment I felt that Ron was not in control of the church anymore.
What year was this? Like specifically what year?
That probably would have been in mid-70s. I can't be specific. I have got a reference to that LOHED, and it gives the date. But I don't recall what it was. That was, 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's certainly it's listed on the website anyway, in one of the pages. So it's there for anyone to find.
Well, when do you think the squirreling really sort of started, like the changes to the tech and these EDs issued that weren't by him? What sort of year do you reckon?
Well, apart from that, it wasn't long after that. They pulled me back from there. I went back to Sydney, and then they shot me back down to Melbourne. And then in Melbourne, normally a church has two. It has a day organisation and what they call a foundation, which is nights and weekends. And you usually work for one or the other. And most staff work for one or the other, and then they could do like what they call a moonlight job to get themselves some money, because you don't earn any money in the church. Anyway, when I got back, they pulled someone else out and says I have to work day and night and weekends. So there was no way I could earn any money. So eventually I was getting into debt, so I thought that's it. And I had to leave, because I wasn't eating and no money and all this, so in self-defence I had no choice. But then I didn't feel so bad. I felt Ron Hubbard wasn't in control anymore.
Yeah.
He was gone. But in answer to your question, at that time, there was no alterers or changes that I was aware of. And I think that was a gradual process over the subsequent years. For 20 years, I knew nothing about what was going on, apart from threatening phone calls from the church every so often, not time to get stuffed. And then the internet came along. And when the internet came along, that opened everybody's eyes.
Yeah. Because
then you discovered that there were other people in the field, there were other groups, there were auditors, there were pre-clears, even the technology was out there in the field as well.
Yeah.
So then, from then onwards, I discovered that there was not much in the way of ensuring standard tech. So I felt that's one thing that had to be done, some sort of a base or something had to be set up that would ensure standard technology was preserved, primarily. So I've sort of formulated, how would I do this? Should I start a church? Should I start a church? No. Should I start a club? No. And I felt the best thing to do was to start an association. So that's basically how it became formulated.
Yeah, have everyone connected and communicating and all keeping Scientology alive outside the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what year did you leave?
Mid-70s, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, can you get more specific?
I don't remember.
No, too long ago. Yeah.
Too long ago.
Yeah.
A lot of water under the bridge since
Yeah.
then.
Well, it seems like things that when Hubbard came off lines in the late 70s or something, things since that point are questionable. When it comes to changes and all that sort of stuff. And
he was ostensibly on lines when I left.
What does ostensibly mean?
The apparency is that he was on lines.
But he wasn't.
I didn't think he was. But it was only about 2 or 3 years later, maybe 2 years later, 3 years later, that it was announced that he'd dropped his body.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, it's difficult to say.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he was in charge. Whether he was around or not, I don't know. I don't think he was in charge because David Miscavige had apparently inserted himself between Ron and the church, and Miscavige was here.
Yeah.
So anything that passed between them, he filtered.
Mm.
So this is only speculation, but I consider that what Ron sent to the church, he filtered and changed. And what the church sent to Ron, he filtered and changed to suit himself. And he created his own situation where he would eventually control the church. That's just mine.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Speculation.
Yeah. Some people believe that people were sent in by the government or someone, PhD people, pain drug
hypnosis
in the 70s and stuff like that. Do you believe in that sort of stuff?
There was an incident where, while I was at Sydney, in the headquarters there, it's called ANZO, Australian New Zealand Organisation, in the flag rep network, the flag rep representative for the whole of Australia and New Zealand, he reckoned that he spotted someone who was a PhD case who'd come in as a recruit.
Mm.
So he took him in a room. This was a Class 8 guy. And apparently found out he was. So it would not surprise me.
What was he sent to do? Was he sent to just be an SP and screw up org lines or something? Or?
Find out information, I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the exact details because, of course, it was only between. I mean, it wasn't something that I was particularly had to be privy to. It's not something that everyone. When something like that happens, everyone doesn't know because it's not their business. Each person has their own function.
And the person who had been PhD'd, are they even aware that they'd been PhD'd or?
Generally not. Pain, drugs, and hypnosis.
Yeah.
Those three things are used, and they tend to block it out, of course.
Yeah. But what were the?
With auditing, you can recapture it.
What would be the sort of suggestions that would have been given to that sort of person, like go into the organisation and just cause problems, like that sort of suggestion?
It could be any sort of suggestion. You name it. Yeah. There's I don't think there's any limits as to what could be suggested.
Yeah.
But what was suggested in each case, I wouldn't know because it's not an area that I was involved in.
Yeah. What do you think, using your imagination, what sort of suggestion would that person be given? What sort of command?
Basically, mostly I think it was a case of finding out information that could be used against the church. It sounds logical.
Yeah, so it could PhD someone to go into the church, find out information, then come and tell us it or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Almost all, I don't know, but I presume that they all got found out.
Yeah. Do you believe that some people with PhD to go onto the Apollo and get L. Ron Hubbard?
I have no idea.
I heard about that.
Never been. There are more rumours than there are. There's as many rumours as there are Scientologists.
Yeah, but you definitely believe in this whole PhD thing and that it can happen.
Well, that can happen. That happens not just in Scientology. It happens in other areas too.
Yeah.
Richard Condon is an author that wrote a book called The Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah.
And that's based on that principle.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of there's been a lot of papers and stuff written on this subject. William Sargent, a psychiatrist, was a proponent of this as well.
Yeah.
And there are others. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a technology doing PhD.
There's a whole technology which mostly armed forces and secret services use, because one of the guiding principles that they have is anything justifies the means.
Yeah.
The means justifies the end, or whatever the phrase is.
Just out of curiosity, so you were around Sydney and Melbourne, and you said you went to New Zealand as well.
New Zealand, yeah, and I've been to Flag.
And Flag. How did you say? I'm just wondering, what sort of numbers were in the course rooms back in those days?
10 depends. In each course room, I'd say, like in New Zealand, I think it was about 15 or so.
What about people in HGC getting audited?
Yeah, before 5, 6 maybe.
And what about in Melbourne?
Not quite as many. Melbourne, during the day, had more pre-clears than the evenings. Evenings had about 2 or something.
Yeah.
During the day, 4 or 5 or maybe.
Was this before they'd moved into Russell Street or at Russell Street?
This was in Russell Street.
Okay, yeah. When it just sort of started the new building and everything.
I do remember prior to Russell Street, when they were in Caulfield, an outlying suburb of Melbourne, and the academy at one point had about 20 in.
That's pretty good. That's a good amount.
And the course supervisor then, a chap called Alan Cartwright, was doing very well, and then the Guardian's office pulled him out for the Guardian's office, and someone else went in, and then the attendance dropped.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like that.
It's called It's called unmocking a successful action.
Yeah, I've noticed that in Scientology, that like some people can duplicate the tech, be good at it, and when you get a crappy soup, the course room just empties out.
Well, when I was doing the course supervision at St Hill, I was supervising all the new recruits to the Sea Org, getting in there because there were certain basics in the Sea Org that you have to do certain check sheets. And they were doing those, and I was supervising them, and I had about 30 or 40 in there. And suddenly they said, right, we need a chef, because in the sea organisation there, you live there, you eat there, they have people that cook for you and all this sort of business. They have a chef. So they wanted a chef, so they said, right, can you cook? Well, yeah. Okay. You're now the chef. So they pulled me out of there, and I was the chef for the whole of St Hill for quite some time.
Right.
Cooking breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Yeah. How many people were in the course room back in St Hill days? Was it early 70s?
Oh, that'd have been a lot. I don't know exactly. But
it was more than 20.
Oh, 30, 40 maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
When you were there, was that when everyone was getting declared, or that was more like 1980 when everyone was getting declared, wasn't it?
It was long after I left, yeah.
Yeah. So even when you were involved with Melbourne and Sydney, that wasn't quite the time when all this declaring was going on?
No, as I say, a lot of this stuff all occurred gradually afterwards.
Yeah. After RTC got instituted and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What was Sydney's course rooms like back then?
They had a few in there, I think.
When you say a few,
I didn't go. I didn't particularly go in there, so very much. At one point, I went to Flag, and went in the course room there, and there's been about 30 or so in the course room that I was in.
Yeah.
There were different course rooms there.
Yeah.
So they probably would have had quite a few people on course.
And was this in the Fort Harrison?
Yeah.
And then as the years went on, they expanded into other buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But I was in the course room at the top, Fort Harrison.
Okay. Yeah. And did you ever get to meet L. Ron Hubbard or Diana Hubbard or?
I saw Diana Hubbard. I never met Ron, but I saw Diana Hubbard because she was studying in the same course room I was in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she'd come in, sit down, do her study, and she finished, boom, straight out again. That's it.
And she's still in the church, isn't she?
I believe so.
You don't know what post she's doing or anything, or?
No idea.
Wow, it's very interesting. Should be a good person to interview.
Oh, well, best of luck.
Yeah. And David Mayo or Captain Bill or any of those sort of people you don't know?
David Mayo, I sort of vaguely know. I know where he is, and I do have contact with him.
Yeah.
Not much other than that. He keeps a very low profile.
Yeah. Is he... I was just
who's the other guy you mentioned?
Captain Bill.
Well, he's since
He's
deceased.
passed,
So.
yeah. But when you were around, you didn't know him or anything else?
I think I saw him once or twice when he came to St Hill.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
David Mayo, he's not... I mean, even if he was auditing people, he wouldn't be able to say what he...
He wouldn't know.
He's about the same age as you, is he?
Possibly, yeah. I'm in my young 70s.
Yeah. What happened to the ACC? AAC?
AC?
Advanced Ability Centre.
Well, that's... The church heavily attacked that. Very heavily.
Yeah.
And I think they eventually came to some agreement with David Mayo, from my understanding. And he shut up shop, basically. They went into seclusion.
Yeah. And so, since you've left the church, you said you went clear in the church, did you?
I went clear in the church.
Yeah. And what have you done since then, case-wise?
Since then, I've done all the OT levels, the original ones.
Yeah.
Plus had the L's.
Yeah.
And currently on NOTS.
Yeah. So you've done up to OT7? Yeah. Including OT7 or?
Yes.
Yeah.
But not 8.
Okay.
You can do them in the field. There are some actions that you have to get in order to do. Not all of them are solo. So what I did is I went to Canada, and I had whatever was necessary done there. Plus I had the L's while I was there.
Yeah. And who's got the higher OT levels then?
How do you mean, who's got them?
Well, with the APIS or the people associated with them, you've gone up to OT7, that sort of stuff. What about for the, because the bridge goes to like OT30 or something, and it says all classified. Who's got those OT
No,
levels?
not that I'm aware of. The only levels like that are in one's orgs, and that's not LOH. That's Robinson's levels.
Well, in the church though, on the bridge, it goes past OT8 and it says classified. I don't know what number it goes to.
Well, they don't have them. They don't deliver them.
Yeah, they don't deliver them.
No one has them. As far as I'm aware, no one has them. One or two people say they have them, or they have the information.
Yeah.
But LOH, to my knowledge, only said that he wrote notes on it.
Yeah.
Didn't actually codify those notes into specific processes.
Yeah. Well, where do you think the bridge ends then?
Well, one of the things is absolutes are unobtainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's probable that there is, the bridge that we have currently goes up to OT8.
Yeah.
The L's are not on the bridge, they're ancillary to the bridge. There are certainly more levels above, but we don't have them.
Yeah. But
perhaps one day we may, who knows.
Yeah. But you do have OT8 and you have the L's and you have superpower.
Even OT8 is a bit sus, because the OT8 that's in the field, my understanding is that it's not complete.
Yeah.
But if a person has gone up the levels and they've gone up and they've completed all the OT levels, all the levels, they've completed NOTS, they've completed OT7, and they've completed 8 or not, there's still plenty to do.
Yeah.
Getting other people up the bridge, training people, making more auditors, because there's not enough. For this planet, the way the planet is, it's going on a downward spiral, and it'll continue to do so.
Yeah.
Each civilization that's occurred eventually collapses. The US is going the same way, and it's not even lasting as long as the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
or even the Moors in Africa. They lasted 800 years, the empire. Rome lasted, a couple of hundred? I don't know exactly how long. But the US is going down as well. They won't last.
Yeah. And you can get the superpower in the independent field, can't you?
Superpower? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know any standard delivery of a superpower.
Because they're apparently hard to deliver, aren't they?
I've no idea.
Okay.
So, because, there's all speculation, all of that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rumours and speculation. I don't even consider those because I'm only consider if there's an issue was shown to be by LOH, this is superpower. Great, we'd accept that.
Yeah.
But there isn't, as far as I'm aware. Not yet, anyway.
Are they the ones that people are using? Do they say they're board tech bulletins or something like that?
Well, they're using, God knows what they're using. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you know any independent Scientologists that have done superpower independently?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No.
What do you think L. Ron Hubbard's doing these days?
I don't know. I sent him an email, but he never responded. No, he's...
He hasn't learned new technology. He's old-fashioned.
I only have my own viewpoint.
Yeah.
My own viewpoint is that when you look around the whole universe, you see it's a universe of plenty. There has to be lots of something for it to persist. Plants produce millions of seeds. Animals produce millions of seeds in order to ensure survival. Right? You can't just plant one seed and say, well, that's it, I'm done. Because it may not grow, or it might grow a little bit. A wind might suddenly come along, or there's a storm, or someone might tread on it. So here he's planted a seed on this planet called Scientology. Now, this is a stress, this is my personal viewpoint. No hidden data line. No, I haven't got a,
you haven't got some special
editing
what
he's
notes?
up to. But put it like this, if I were he, which I'm not, I would go and plant that same seed on another planet, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one.
Yeah.
Because that might give some guarantee of that Scientology will grow in this universe. But that's all I can think of. I don't see any point in coming back here to this place.
Yeah. What was going clear? What did that feel like to go clear?
The best way of describing that is you feel really, really clear.
That's what everyone says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You do. It's the end. There's no real other way of describing it other than that. That's what you feel. You feel on a clear day, you can see forever.
Yeah. Can someone go standardly clear only off Dianetics? Is that it? You have to go standardly clear. It has to be off Dianetics.
Each individual is different. Some can go clear on Dianetics. Some go clear on the clearing course. Some might go clear somewhere in between.
But
there's no rigid. It's got to be this way or that way.
Okay.
It depends totally on the case of the individual person.
Okay. Personally, I think it's a bit questionable someone going clear off like an objective process, before they've even done the grades or something like that.
And there are even what they call natural clears.
Yeah.
Extremely few. Very, very few. Not as many as
the church,
there would appear to be.
The church love to dish them out. They would dish them out.
Like sort of, like McDonald's tokens or something.
Literally. It seems like the tech was... L. Ron Hubbard went off lines. The tech got worse, and it moved into a lot of quicking, right? And then GAT1 came out, and that stopped everything, a huge stop. Then GAT2 has come out, and that's more of a quickie to stop the problem with GAT1. That's what I've noticed.
Well, yes, it's just auto-is piled on top of an auto-is piled on top of an auto-is, basically. You've got the original technology, and someone comes along and says, we're going to introduce this. and someone says, "Oh, no, that doesn't help. Let's do this because that'll fix it. Oh no, we better do this because this will fix it because that didn't fix that." No, go back to the original technology.
Yeah, it's a problem reaction solution thing. If everything's going fine, it's hard to come in and just change everything and alter everything. So what you have to do is you have to secretly start screwing things up and then go, "Hey, I've got the solution, do this," and then a lot of people go, "Yeah, change it, we've got a problem."
Well, that probably could be happening, yeah.
What do you see is going on in the future in Scientology for the church and the independent field?
My own viewpoint is the churches are going to deteriorate down into nothingness. It'll just be an empty shell with lots of property and money and
That's
nothing
what it
else.
is. That's pretty much, that seems to be what it is, yeah.
And eventually Miscavige will die. I mean, everyone gets a turn
Yeah,
at dying.
yeah.
No one is exempt. So I don't know what you can do with all that money.
Yeah.
No idea. I wouldn't have a clue. I mean, $1.5 billion. What can you do with $1.5 billion?
Yeah.
Other than hoard it, which is what he does. Which is what a lot of people like that do. Again, to that obsessive must-have.
Yeah.
It's an obsessive must-have on something, in this case, money.
Yeah.
So that's what he's doing. If Scientology is to survive, it's going to be because there are groups around that continue to use the technology and preserve the technology and make it more known to other people so that they can also use the technology. So, we've got to train more people, train more auditors, get more people up the bridge to clear an OT, and that's the only way that we'll survive. Otherwise it will die a death.
Yeah.
I often ask the question, and people probably get fed up with me asking this question, where do you want Scientology to be in 50 years when you come back? Do you still want it to be here? Well, if you do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
To make that happen.
Yeah. What are the reasons for someone doing Scientology? Why should there will be people watching this that won't be active Scientologists. Why should someone be doing it? They will find out knowledge-wise the basics of what a person is made up of. They'll find out how they can improve their own life, not in terms of being a better person necessarily, but by relieving themselves of traumas of the past or upsets that they may have or have had, which can still linger. A lot of people you can say, "Would you remember an upset you had?" "Oh yes, I remember that." And it's still there. It doesn't go away unless it's actually handled. So they can handle all of those. They can increase their ability as a being, increase their ability to have compassion, ability to be a better person in those ways. There's a lot of things. Each person gets something different out of it. Some people like to help others. They can do that. And it's quite something when you see someone in front of you that you've helped and they've had a sudden fantastic realization about themselves that they never had before, or they have a tremendous sense of relief from something issue that has been troubling them, sometimes just in the back of their mind for years. And there's a real sense of accomplishment and a great sense of being when you do that. Yeah. There's this sort of idea when you do the OT levels that you might turn into like a magical state and that sort of stuff. Is that true? And what did you get from the OT levels?
Well, if that were true, I would still look like I was 20 years old, but I don't. So that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I don't know what there were a lot of preconceptions about OT. I had those myself prior to being OT. I thought, oh, he's OT, I wonder what he can do, and this sort of thing. It's an expansion of your own awareness, your own understanding, your own beingness. It's probably one of the best ways of describing it. You are more yourself. For someone who is not, it is difficult to see because, of course, they're not.
Yeah.
And it's something you have to experience.
Yeah.
It's like trying to describe colour to a blind person. Well, that's red. Yeah, but what's red? Well, it's sort of like, it's a sort of a deep colour. What's a deep colour? Well, it's different to that which is blue. What's the difference between the two? Being blind, you can't see. But once, if you're able to open his eyes to the point where he can see them, now I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now I understand. That's red. It makes sense.
Yeah. What was your biggest win in Scientology?
I've had a tremendous number of big wins. One of them is the fact that through most of my life I had a lot of headaches. Every week I would have headaches. And now I don't have any headaches. None at all. They're all gone. They're all psychosomatic. There's no physical reason for a headache. It's only a re-stimulation of some past event that occurred.
When you had these headaches, did doctors have any sort of answer as to what it was?
No, headaches, no. It's just, take a Panadol.
Yeah.
That's the answer to headaches. Take a Panadol.
Yeah.
They might give you some brain scans, see if there's anything in there that causes them, but no, nothing there. No, take a Panadol.
Yeah.
But once they're gone, I'll tell you, it's something that hits your reality.
Yeah.
One time you say, I used to have these headaches, now I don't have any headaches. Bang. Very simple. It's like once upon a time you couldn't move your leg.
Yeah.
And then suddenly one day it's fixed and, hey, I can move my leg. It's fantastic. Works great.
I was listening to some stuff from people who were ex-Scientologists today, and I heard them say how, some people get a win, but then their illness just comes back, and it goes away, and then it comes back. What would you say to that?
That's because it hasn't been completely eradicated. It's there's two things that can happen. One is that the charge or whatever it is that's causing the problem can move away. It's called a key out. Or it can be totally eradicated. Quite often it just moves away. In Scientology that happens. You can have a key out. In Dianetics, if you really go down to the original cause of that particular issue or problem or pain, then once you've seen the original, the source of it, it disappears and you don't get it back again because it's not there to be gotten back. So that's the difference between the two. We have someone that says that pain has come back. It never went away. It did go away. It went over there, but then it's come back again.
Yeah.
But it's not been eradicated. No one has actually gone down and found the source of that problem. Because when you find the source of something, it vanishes.
So why is it that there's some people who, if Scientology is so good, why is it there's some people who leave and then just hate Scientology and just are haters of Scientology forever and say everything about it is crap? Depends
on the individual. There are some that have done things against Scientology and don't want to confront the fact that they've done things against it. Some might leave in self-defence, particularly from the current church. Some may have had poor quality auditing, which increases, as I said before, the bypass charge without actually getting rid of it.
Yeah.
and causes upsets. There could be any number of reasons. Depends on the individual.
Yeah.
We can't say this is a blanket reason for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, because I imagine that for the people who are listening to this, who have just heard the negative stuff about Scientology on the internet, they would be a bit confused as to like, why are some people still Scientologists and other people think it's all bullshit? You know?
Depends on the individual. Some people just don't like anything that's good.
Yeah.
The best thing is to read the books themselves and come to their own conclusion from reading Dianetics and Fundamentals of Thought, and New Slant on Life, Evolution of Science, all these sort of books. They're all listed on various websites and so forth. You can find them all.
Yeah.
Books by Ron Hubbard. Find out for oneself from the source. Don't take someone else's word for something.
Yeah.
Because you can only get their opinion or the way that they think of something.
Yeah.
You don't want the way someone else thinks of something. You want the way that you think of something.
Yeah.
And the way to get that is to look at something. It's like the difference is between looking at instructions for building a bridge and listening to someone who can't read properly tell you the instructions for building a bridge.
Yeah.
Which is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Best thing is to read the instructions, obviously.
Yeah.
Find out for themselves.
Yeah. Where should someone go if they want to get the original books then, because you can't go to the church?
Well, we have them all in electronic form on our website. For people who want to be a member, they have access to all the materials.
The original, correct, not these revisions.
The original, correct stuff.
Yep.
All the training packs and all the. There's not just the books. There's about 3,000 tape lectures.
Wow, that's good.
So they have kind of access to that as well.
So there's people who have never tried Scientology, and then there's people who have been in the church and left, and they can go and contact the APIS and get help and do Scientology.
Yep.
Yeah. How would they do that? How would they contact the Association of
Yeah,
Professional
when you go to the
Independent
website, there are contact pages, and they can just go to the contact page and put their details in there to say what they want.
Yeah.
It's also a good idea to say where they're from, because it could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And if they want an auditor, or they want somewhere to train, or they want some books or something to study, say where they're from, because then I know where to send them. I mean, if there's someone in Bulgaria, or someone in Spain, or someone in the US, there's not much point in sending a person halfway across the world. Send them to the closest person available.
Yeah. Great. It's good. The future looks bright, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for being on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Nice talking to you, Andy.